This is a demo of exercise 7, which has to do with layer masks. And I'm introducing you to masking in this demo. So what I'm going to do is open a Photoshop document. The app is loading. And I'll make it something that in the future I could print if I wanted to. So I'm going to make it a landscape orientation, and 11 by 17, I want it will be my print paper size. So I'm going to make the make it 10 by 16. And make it landscape, as I said, and paint it a resolution that would be large enough to print, which would be 200. I'll be staying in CMYK color. And the background contents, you can start with transparent. They don't need to be white, although some of you might like that. You can dump a color in later, but you can dump a color in if it's transparent also. Kind of nice to have the transparent backgrounds. So yeah, so I'll call it demo for exercise demo layer masks and say create. And then I'm going to be working in layers. So notice that my swatches and color are up on top because that's what I like. And I keep my brushes there too. I'm just trying to consolidate because I'm on a laptop. And I have layers, history, brush settings, because I sometimes use brushes and brush settings at the same time. So I kept it in two separate areas where I can have them both on at the same time. So this is something that you can control. You can set it up the way you want, right? The palettes, so that you can use them more efficiently. Right now I'm in my layers palette. So I'm going to place some images on separate layers. So I'm going to make a new layer, go to the bottom and click the plus, new layer next to the trash can, and say place, file place. And I'm going to place some new images. So place embedded is the best thing because you don't necessarily know if you'll remember to keep your images, which you should, in the same folder always. But if you don't do that, you know, if you don't remember, sometimes it's better to place embedded. It makes the document bigger, but at least you'll be somewhat protected against losing your images. Sometimes it loses them anyway, and it will ask you later, especially if you don't save it as a PDF and you keep it a Photoshop document, whether you find that linked image. So it's better to always keep your images that you use for a document in case it's not able to actually keep them. If it's, then you really have a problem, but if it's embedded, I've also had a problem sometimes, but you're not supposed to have that problem. So I'm going to go to my desktop, and I made a folder. These images are all in your files menu, okay? So I'm recording this so that you can go over it again, but I will try to write it out as well. So I'm going to first place the Sand Dunes Sahara image, which I found online in large images last night that are royalty free. And I'm going to place it into this document. And it comes in so that it fills the document size. So because it's proportionate, not quite proportionate, exactly proportionate to the size that I chose, I'm going to actually I'm going to crop out these things later. But first I'm going to see how this works out. And then I'm going to hit return, which embeds the image. You can also do that on the control bar. You should be able to hit embed, but if you can't, if you don't see it, because actually my window is a little bit smaller, than all the commands. If you don't see that command, just hit return, and that gets rid of that X that embeds it. So then I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to place another image on that layer. So do file place again, and I'm going to say place embedded again. And this time I'm going to pick an image of a kitten that I just volunteered to foster for a week. Anybody want to adopt a kitten? So in fact, if you know about cats, Gabby, you can help me, because I have no idea how old this cat is and what I should be doing. So I've been reading. I agreed just for a week until he finds a home for it to take care of this little kitten. And it's very small. So I've never done that before, and I'm really doubting my sanity and having decided to do this, but yeah. So anyway, what I think I want is this kitten to be sitting in the Sahara Desert. And you could make it bigger or smaller right now by diminishing the size of your placed image, or you could do it later by just on the layer itself, right? So you can go to edit, transform to any layer and make the image on that layer bigger or smaller. I've shown you how to do that already with selected pixels. So, but in this case, I'm just going to hit return again. So now we have on one layer, one image, and this does not have to be photographic images. It can be your drawn and painted image also, right? So you could have a drawing, for instance, on a piece of paper and scan it, or you could have drawn something on another document and you just want to bring it in. So I showed you how to select images, but when there's stuff like hair and other things in the way, this image may be really hard to do a selection that looks natural, because it's going to be hard to get a selection that has the edges exactly how you want. So another way to make selections more and be able to actually paint the selection the way you want, you could select everything with the possibly with the quick selection, and then maybe erase around it would be a possibility. But a better way, and it's very similar to erasing with the eraser tool, but it's better, is to use layer masking. And there's two ways of doing layer masking. One is right on the layer that you have on top of the one. You want to cut out some of this. So you're going to mask out, you're going to erase out using a layer mask. Or you could use the quick mask tool and make a selection that way and delete the parts that you don't want. So I'm going to show you just how to do a normal layer mask. And you can do it on the layer that you want to mask out some of it, or cut out or erase out some of it. So I go down to the bottom and it says add layer mask. So I've added now a layer mask on the kitten layer. And what a layer mask does is it makes the pixels on that layer susceptible to transparency, to you painting out parts of the, painting in transparency, or eventually if you painted 100% of the transparency, painted on it with 100%, you would paint out part of the pixels. Does that make sense? So the two things that you should remember whenever you're using any kind of layer mask is black takes away and white adds to the transparency of the pixels. So black takes away, white adds. White is plus, black is minus. So notice that when I started doing the layer mask, there was a black, the foreground and background colors in your toolbar, at the bottom of your toolbar, turned into black foreground and white background. You can reverse that with the little arrows there. So you can toggle back and forth to adding and subtracting transparent. You know, if, let's say you wanted to start adding, then you just toggle that with the little round arrow. Or you can hit the X key on your keyboard. So that toggles back and forth. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say I just want the cat, right? So I'm gonna paint out a good deal of this. So I'm gonna go to my paintbrush. You have to do this with your paintbrush. And make sure that your paintbrush is active on the layer. You don't have the layer lock that you're trying to paint out. And you literally just start painting out what you don't want. If you paint with 100% opacity, it will paint out all of those pixels. If you paint, and you need to be in normal mode, not one of the other modes that we've tried. So normal painting mode, and the opacity should be 100%. If you paint in less than 100%, you will get a not 100%, you won't be erasing pixels entirely. You'll be leaving part of it there. Let me show you. So I have my paintbrush, and I have it now at, my flow is 100%. My opacity, I'll put it at like 50%. And you'll see part of the other image below. I'll paint something where you can see really obviously what I'm painting. So I have black, which takes away. Notice that I'm painting away these pixels, and I'm using my mouse, so none of you can use the excuse of not having a Wacom. I'm gonna go to my Wacom in a minute because I'm gonna have to paint around the hair, and I wanna show you how to do that. But as I paint, you can see the Sahara Desert starting to come through. I'm gonna move to my Wacom now because I find it easier whenever I paint this delicately or precisely to paint with the pen. It's a lot easier. So I'm going to, but somehow when I'm on Zoom, my, it's a delayed, my Wacom pen doesn't, oh boy.
That's a lot of opacity you were moving there.
I have to use my mouse because for some reason, when I'm on Zoom, there's a huge lag with the Wacom tablet. I'm not sure why that is. So I'm using my mouse. So, oh, now the opacity is at 100%. So I'm removing all of the other picture. Notice that at 100%, I'm getting all of the Sahara, right? Because, and I made my brush really, really big. So the challenge is going to be this little guy's hair. But I don't think you would do better with the quick selection because it will give you a ragged, and then you'll still have to go into the hair with the Wacom, so, or the paintbrush. So I'm using the paintbrush, and now I'm making my paintbrush smaller, much smaller, because I'm literally going to paint the hair in. So you want to get as close as you can with the mask. And I made my brush really tiny, as small as I could. Also, if you do this kind of, like you want to go, I would go in on it more. And still going to try the Wacom one more time, because ordinarily I would do this definitely with some kind of tablet. It doesn't have to be a big tablet. It can be a small one. You might get better. Now I went in too much. I was on the wrong tool. I meant to be on the paintbrush when I was wanting to start painting. So I'm zooming out now. Okay, so how am I gonna do this hair? So go back up to the paintbrush and see how big you want the brush tool. You could also try you have to paint with the brush tool, you have to. So you can't use another tool when you're using the mask, I don't think. And it's actually not letting me go much smaller than this. So I have to go up to the top and select a size that's smaller. It won't let me do it with the brackets. Oh my gosh. I don't have, oh no, it just won't work. I have to do it with the mouse. I'll figure out what's wrong with my Wacom a little later. So I'm with black, make sure that you're on black, and I'm just gonna paint out. I'm gonna paint the hairs. And later you can go, you know, right now I'm just painting so some of the hair is obviously, this is gonna be a process. Go back to the paint. So I'm gonna make my way all the way around him. In the meantime, let me show you, then you can make your brush bigger again with the brackets. The forwards bracket makes it bigger, and the backwards bracket makes it smaller. And hopefully, if you're on, can see it get bigger, but it's not doing that with my shortcut for some reason. So I'm gonna go up again to the, up on the control and just make it bigger and go down and see how much bigger I made it. Yeah. So now I can paint out closer. And I'm gonna have to make it small when I want to go really close because I'm afraid of going across my own lines, right? So I'm gonna finish it for you, but when you get close, so now I can go in again with the brush, make it smaller. Notice that on the toolbar above, it gives you the option to zoom in on certain areas. So again, my Wacom isn't working very well, and some of the shortcuts aren't working. Like I can't get my keyboard right now because of Zoom, so I'm using my mouse. So you don't have much an excuse here because I'm doing it. And I'm also using my control to control the size of the brush, because somehow that's not working on my control. The keyboard shortcut isn't working. So, so now I can get right in here. I drew it first, and now I'm erasing or painting into the rest of my mask. Notice that I have selected the layer mask. So I'm actually painting on the layer mask, and I have the two connected. The link is active between the layer mask, and I'm looking here on the right in my layers palette. So what you should see as you paint on a mask is either a transparent painting or full black mask, white and black mask you painted. Because if you paint with transparency, you don't have to paint with 100%. You're gonna get part of the thing underneath showing. So it affects the transparency. If you have it at 100%, it takes out the entire, it masks out the entire pixel. That's as far as I got when I was painting his hair. So again, I'm going to go up here and to affect the size of my brush because the command doesn't seem to be working on the keyboard. I can paint, I can improve my painting of the hair also. So if I go out now, Command 0, you can see that it's looking a lot better in terms of the painting around the little furry animal than it would. It's a lot sharper looking than it would if I had just been trying to do this with the quick selection, which would give me a very fuzzy kind of look. So this is, the files are in there. I want you to try to do this. I want you to, I'm gonna finish this and then I wanna show you one more thing that I can do, but I have to have the kitten selected, or I have to have the mask complete first before I can show you that it can get bigger and smaller on that layer by manipulating the size through Edit Transform. So he's going to be sitting on the right in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Now, another part of this will be one of the images that I want you to put into exercise 7. So there's going to be 2 images that I want you to work with for exercise 7. This is one of them, so I'm going to say save as, and I'm going to call it EX7, my name, call it part A, 7A, and my name. So take notes on this if you won't remember what I'm saying. So I actually put this in as an example to exercise 7. So I'm going to save this right now into layer mask and save it with your layers so I can see what you did. Okay. Okay. Then I want you, and I'll finish this and then I'll also show you that you can go into the layer if you're on this layer and you can change the size by just saying Edit, Transform, it'll put a box around it and you can change the size of this thing. This is to help you do, by the way, project 3, or you might have to do some of this, right? Because you're collaging elements. Okay, actually I wanted to close that. So save and close, save, I did that already, I saved, so I'm just gonna close it. Now the next part of exercise 7 will be part B. And I want you to do some transparent masking. So I'm gonna open, the files are in here to do that as well. So I'm going to open another document the same size. So file new, create new, and hopefully 16 by 10, 200, say create. And this time I'm going to make a new layer again and place the sunset. So place embedded and go to sunset. And then hit return to embed it. And make a new layer. And this time place actually, I usually do this in 2 steps. This hand that's going to come in, I usually select the hand and get rid of the background first, but you can do that as a step in the exercise. So I don't want the white background, okay? So this is pretty easy. You can look at this and you can see that you can take out the white background by doing a quick select of the background. So go to the quick selection tool and make it, it's a brush. So you can make it larger, hopefully, with the forwards and backwards bracket again. Maybe you'll have to use, no, the magic wand, there's too much of a variation in the background. So we're trying to select the background only, and the quick select is the best way. But it's actually, it's a brush and you should be able to make it bigger or smaller. Come on, quick select. I may have to do this. There, I got it. Just move your quick select around the background and it should select the background area. If it doesn't, you can try selecting, am I in plus? No, I'm in minus, no wonder. You need just the regular old quick select tool. So on the, there we go. Now, if you want to check what your selection is here, that it's the right selection that you've made, you're trying to delete the background, you can go to what's called the quick mask tool, and it'll show you what you have selected. It didn't. It's showing me, okay. So I'm gonna first crop out the part that's irrelevant to this, because it didn't seem like me having that still. So I'm cropping in the corners where the transparent, and I'm gonna hit return and crop that piece. Okay, now I'm trying to, on this layer, get rid of the background. So let me see if maybe selecting the hand is better. Quick selection tool, I'm actually gonna try selecting hand, and you can make your size of the brush a little bit bigger so you can see what you're doing, and go to plus quick select and move it around in the hand area. Okay, now I got my hand. I got my total arm, and I can see that I've selected the arm. So what I'm trying to get rid of is the background. I just want the arm selected. So if you want to take notes on this, since I haven't written it out, you can. And you're going to say, select inverse. So you're getting the background of these pixels, select inverse, and hit delete. And you should then now have deleted, and you just have the hand. However, the sunset layer, that's what you have actually, the sunset showing through. But we're in quick mask, we don't want to be. Okay, so I thought I had deleted the background here. I want to delete, we were in quick mask by mistake, so I want to delete. And I want to select the inverse. I have the hand still selected. So say select inverse. And I'm on the layer of the arm and delete. And it won't let me because it's a smart object. So rasterize that layer. It says it's a smart object. I must have saved it as the wrong. So rasterize the layer. You go in layer, rasterize smart object. It's saying it's a smart object. I didn't think it was. And then delete those pixels. Now you have the arm on just the arm on that layer, okay? What I want to show you is that if you put a mask on this layer, all right? So you've got the landscape layer, you've got the arm, and all that's selected on this, we got rid of the background. I usually do that on, you can do it before you bring it in to this layer, or you can do it, you know, when it's just its own layer, but it says it's a smart object. So if it says it's a smart object, rasterize it. Go to layer, rasterize. Okay, so now I have the arm, And what you can deselect, I still have the or go backwards and select, save the selection if you want, select, save selection, and call it ARM in case you're afraid of losing that selection for some reason. But by having it on a layer by itself, you've in effect created a selection, you know? You don't really have to save it because it's on the layer by itself. If I turn off the landscape, if I turn off the landscape layer, now I've lost my cursor, there it is. If I turn off the landscape layer, I'm going into my layers palette right here. All you'll see is the arm. Got it? Okay, so now on this layer, I'm gonna create a layer mask. So go down to the bottom and on the arm layer, create a layer, linked layer mask. Notice that the layer mask shows up as a white box linked to the original pixels, which was the arm. Now, what did I say about affecting transparency? When you have a layer mask, it affects, you can paint into it with, as if it was, you know, that your paintbrush is affecting the transparency. So I'm gonna go to my paintbrush. Notice when I did my layer mask, white and black show up again, total white and black. If it's gray there, you need to make your boxes white and black. And go to the paintbrush, make it the size you want. If you can't do it with the forwards and backwards bracket, go into the control bar above and control it there. So I'm making it a size. And in this case, you might want to pick a fuzzy brush, a soft brush, because the hard brush is going to make marks that look very hard. And you don't necessarily want that as you paint into the hand. And I'm going to make it so that I can't see the marks too much. So I'm going in and making a size bigger. This is just to show you what happens. And I'm going to now paint not with 100% opacity, but with like maybe 15%. And as you paint, notice that below here, you're painting with black and white. So black takes away from the selection and affects the transparency by taking it, making it more, you know, taking away by making it more transparent, and white adds to the solidity of the pixels. So as I paint, I want you to try this. As I paint, it's going to become more transparent if I use black and less transparent if I use white. So I'm going to call it the hand of the goddess. That's what I name this always. It's my hand. So again, I want to make it even more. I'm looking at the size of my brush here. And as I start to paint, watch what happens. You see what's happening? What's happening? Somebody that, Gabby, is that Gabby talking?
Felicia.
Felicia.
Yeah.
What's happening as I paint here?
It's the hand is becoming transparent and you can see the background layer through it.
Yeah, so I have a hand that looks like it's semi-transparent, you know, that it's not quite there, which is an interesting effect, right? So now, if I like it that much, or I can add, what if I take out too much? Like all of a sudden here, there's no more hand. There's a big hole right here. You can hardly see the hand anymore. So I need to switch, and I can do X. I'm hitting X on the keyboard, or you can go here and switch in the bottom of the toolbar, and you can add in some more of the hand so that you see it again. So I just wanted to show you that that's how layer masks work. So you can crop, you can literally paint the very, very finely the selection that you want. You can paint it in, paint it out on a layer, or you can make something semi-transparent. So you could have the fade in and fade out very gradual or very subtle. This might help you in collaging one element on top of another or next to another. Because you're going to be working on layers, which we've already done. So on any layer, you can put a layer mask. Remember that if it says it's a smart object, maybe I brought it in by mistake and had the smart object option checked. You have to rasterize the layer first. So go to layer, rasterize, and that will make it so that you can paint into it with the layer, so that you can make a layer mask. Any other questions? Any questions? Notice that in my layers palette, you can see what I've painted. You can also take off the layer mask or release it from the layer mask, and then you won't have that effect. But I don't think I'm going to show you that right now. Some of you who are going to be struggling with this, I'll show you how to do it when you get to it. So this is part B. So for exercise 7, there's going to be 2 parts. Save this as, save as. So you're going to call it EX7, 7B, and my name. And then save it into the exercise 7 folder on Canvas. Notice that whenever you have photos extending into transparent areas, you made your canvas too big, that's okay. It's better to have it too big than too small, right? So then at the end, you can just crop that by going to the crop tool. Whoops, that was the wrong one. Crop tool, and just bring it in and crop out the part that you don't want.